Hi there, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, back again to talk about the Wolfpack's Week 1 victory over East Carolina. They won the game 24-17 on Thursday night. Um, really solid start to the season, and they're running. They're getting ready for Week 2 against Virginia. Win's a win. You move on, get ready for ACC play, even though this isn't a game that'll count towards the ACC standings. It's still a conference opponent that you want to prove some points against, and so they'll get into preparation. But for those of you that either didn't watch the game or couldn't attend the game, if you're local, I figured that sort of a sights and sounds recap of what I saw in person might be a nice addition to the coverage this weekend. So I'll just run you through sort of some of the notable things that I wrote down throughout the game. Just interesting nuggets and little observations I had of the scene at Carter Finley Stadium last night. When I got there about 4 o'clock, the parking lot was bumping. A lot of people came up from Greenville for to support ECU. Just a great game day atmosphere. Obviously, that Thursday afternoon, Thursday night setup works out well for people getting off of work and the kids back in school. It's sort of that long weekend feel, especially with the Labor Day weekend. So people were enjoying themselves in the parking lot and having that sort of traditional game day atmosphere, game day tailgate experience, which was good to see. It's good. It's good. Makes you feel like football's back, and it certainly felt that way yesterday. So just a nice start to the day. Got settled in the press box, ready to watch the game, and Will Wade was selected as the Alpha Wolf, which is sort of the leader who leads the team at the tunnel and does a whole little pep talk thing. Um, he was fired up. He had the crowd going. Clearly a fan. It's very rare that you see a fan base embrace a new coach in such a way, but when you want a guy that bad and you get that guy, it can really galvanize a group of people around that program and that person. And he's done such an incredible job of that so far. Um, it was interesting. He had the whole team there. They were watching the warm-ups from the sideline, and ECU actually ran out of their tunnel towards the end zone where the basketball team was hanging out, and there was some serious smack talk happening in that corner. The Wolfpack men's hoops team was getting after it a little bit and sort of trying to rattle those ECU players before they went up to their suites to watch the rest of the game. But that was just a fun little nugget there that they have they have the football teams back. I'm not sure that they'd be super fired up to suit up or get into it with one of those bigger ECU guys, but just a nice, you know, two teams having each other's back felt like kind of the old days of college sports. Just the sign of a healthy rivalry. Um, Crowd was pretty consistent throughout the game, filled in kind of as the game kicked off and then was steady. Big crowd. No ECU band, which was interesting. They opted not to bring their band, but they did have a solid fan presence kind of in the corners of the stadium. And as they sort of cut into that lead and got back in the game, they got louder and louder and enough to, be noticeable, which was, I'm sure, not ideal in the eyes of some state fans, but it was interesting to see that. Um, yeah, one thing I noticed now moving into more of the football side, the substitutions for the defense in particular, because DJ Elliott, the defensive coordinator, wants to throw so many different looks at you, can really become a problem if the other team is able to go up tempo. This is a thing I've noticed covering multiple college football teams is when these offenses are able to go up tempo, which not every school can do, not every coach can do, not every coach wants to do. That's just not how everybody does it. But when they do against defenses that rely heavily on subs and different fronts and different looks, it can really cause problems because these guys get gas, and especially in week one, these guys need to get off the field, and that became noticeable as ECU kind of started having these extended drives where the pressure just slowly got lesser and lesser by that NC State defensive line, which had a really strong game, but just sort of ran out of steam towards the end, and they were able to hold on, obviously, but that could be something to monitor moving forward with DJ Elliott's defense is how they manage defending up tempo, fast offenses. I'm not sure who they'll play next, who will try to do that. I'm not sure Virginia has the personnel to handle that. They have sort of a not super strong offensive unit. So we'll see if they give that a whirl. But if not, I mean, this defense can feast throughout games because they're throwing so many different things your way. So if they can handle the procedures and getting players on and off the field and clean up some of the penalties caused by that, this defense could be really strong. But that's just something to keep an eye out as you watch these games in the future. Can they get these fresh legs on the field when they need to? And they did for the most part in the key moments last night, and it didn't cost them too much. So, something to watch. That's all. Offensively, Noah Rogers, wide receiver, took a big hit and was down on the field for a hot second I believe it was in the second half, and he once he got up, walked to the sideline on his own power, and he was adamant that he wanted to go back in the game on the sideline, which they're not going to show you on TV, but I just thought long-term injury wise, probably a head injury. We'll see if he's able to go. He's going to have those extra few days to recover, but we won't get any word until we get that injury report from from Doran and the program ahead of the next game. So that'll be something to watch going forward. A lot of players in street clothes. Jonathan Paylor was we couldn't identify him from the press box. Not sure what's going on there injury wise, but he did not play after supposedly having such a strong fall camp, which was a bummer. So that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. Um, CJ Bailey had a solid opener. Some things to work on for sure. And one of them that you can that's a little more difficult to see on TV, but from our observation, from our viewpoint in the press box, you can see it a little bit better. But his pocket presence at times needs a little bit of work. He gets happy feet, especially when the pressure starts to ramp up. And that's just sort of something that young quarterbacks deal with. And you hope that he grows out of that over the course of the season and they'll help him deal with that. But just some of the decision making when that pressure comes in terms of do I need to take off here? Can I dump it to the running back? Should I just take the sack and settle for it? Should I just throw it away? Those are things he needs to work on. There were a couple plays. He took a big sack in the fourth quarter, which sort of set up a way more difficult field goal for a kicker who had sort of a nightmare game yesterday, and Konachinsky. And had he not taken that sack, do I know that Konachinsky would have made the field goal? No, based on the way that he was kicking throughout the game, but he certainly would have had a better look from more towards the middle of the field rather than the left hash. And we maybe the game goes a little bit differently. NC State gets a 10-point lead. ECU presses a little bit more, and NC State's able to wrap things up in a little bit more of a comfortable way than it ended up being. But um, the the last thing that I observed was the crowd noise was a weapon. I know Doran talked about that after the game. He talked about the crowd needing to be a weapon ahead of the game. He sort of pleaded to NC State fans to show up, be loud, help this defense out, and they did for the most part. And it came down to that fourth down play that was sort of critical, and the crowd was loud, and the defense was ready for a bunch of different options. They were ready for the crack screen um, that ECU ran in that moment. They were ready for another version of the speed option that they scored with earlier in the game. The speed option is something to watch out for this defense because just the way that they play with the linebackers, sometimes they get a little stretched. Um, and teams with a speedy quarterback could cause some problems with plays like that. Um, but they got it done. The crowd got loud. ECU was discombobulated, and there weren't a lot of options. Hauser dumped it off to the receiver, and Jamel Johnson was there for the tackle, and that was it. That was the game, and the crowd really rose up in that spot. Despite not having a lot to cheer for in the second half. That's something, this offense seems to be a little bit explosive dependent. They didn't establish the run, I think, as well as they would have wanted to. But Smothers still had a solid day in the backfield. So that'll be something to monitor moving forward because of the way the schedule is set up. They don't leave the state of North Carolina. Obviously, there are a couple road games, but they're in North Carolina. Can you get some fans to travel to Winston-Salem and Durham for those road games? And then can you maintain this energy in Carter Finley, which, a big part of that is going to be performance and winning. And if they go out and perform better next week against Virginia, then you could start to get some buzz about this program. Could they start the season 5-0, 6-0 going into that road trip to Notre Dame? So yeah, that's something to monitor. And those are sort of your sights and sounds from yesterday. Obviously, not everything. I just thought those were some interesting nuggets I'd share with you all. Thanks for listening. I know it's a big football weekend for you all, so if you enjoyed this, I'm glad to hear it. As always, feel free to follow my personal Twitter account at Senate Tucker or the website's Twitter account at Wolfpack on SI for more written content, as well as the press conferences and coverage of those as well. Find out what the players had to say, what Dave Doran had to say. All interesting stuff. And again, thank you for tuning in. It's always a great time talking Wolfpack football with you all. Hope you all have a lovely Labor Day weekend.